Hello, how y'all doing? I'm going to talk about part two, growing old, be like. Now, like I said previously, I don't communicate with people too much outside of my family, outside of my immediate family. Of course, I communicate with people in my immediate family, and I'm talking about children, etc. I communicate with people inside my family, but I'm talking about other people outside my family. I can only think about three that I even communicate with it, and even that's few and far between. That's just texting. To tell the truth, that's just texting, and I don't even text that much. That's just few and far between. But the truth is, your world does get small. I mean, I'm trying to give away stuff and give away stuff that I'm not using, that I'm not doesn't fit anymore. Just give it away. Your world does get smaller as you age. I noticed that the elderly people in my family, I used to notice that when I was young, had very few close friends. It could have been some of their friends died. Like my great aunt, she had one friend left, and then she died. My grandmother's sister. But very few people that I noticed as they aged had any close friends. It could have been that some of them have died. But I didn't notice that they had very few close friends. But it could have been they burned their bridges when they were young. Okay, that could have been very well why. But when I was in my 30s, I had friends and my acquaintances in my 20s and in their 20s and 30s. I understand that. But now that I'm older, no, I don't hang around people in their 20s and 30s. I don't do that. Too much of a generation gap. I mean, we talk differently, everything. It's just a generational gap. Generational, too much of an age difference. Okay, so I mean, I'm just a realist. I'm a realist, An ace is an ace, a spade is a spade. Okay. So I just don't think I could go there, okay? Now, let's talk about sex for a minute. Now, I think that from ages 40 and up, you have just as much of a sex drive as you had when you're 20s and 30s. It's just that when you're 40 and up, you know what you're doing. That's the only difference. But see, sometimes your mind says yes, but your body says no. I mean, sure, when you're in your up in age, you're going to notice if I'm going to notice if a man is handsome and all that. I'm going to notice that. But my better judgment says no. You know what? My better judgment says I'm just looking on the outside. Okay, but that doesn't mean what kind of person he could be on the inside. He could be a serial killer, and I don't know about it. He could be a serial rapist, and I don't know that. He could be a thief, and I don't know that. I could be his 14th, 15th victim. I don't know that either. So you got to use your sense, some common sense, as you age. But, in my opinion, you have just as much of a sex drive as you did in your 20s and 30s. I think it's intensified. Myself, I actually know a lot of elderly people who have an active and a good sex life well into their old age. Okay, I've seen that. I have to admit, most of them are Christian. I don't know what the other elderly people are doing. But I have seen, or at least heard about, married people have a good sex life well into their old age. They're Christian and married and so on and so forth. But I think, as you age, if you start dating somebody in your 20s and 30s, you're just asking for trouble. Madonna, she's 62 or 61 or something, and she has this late 20s-year-old boyfriend. That's unrealistic. Because you know what? That's totally unrealistic. She's not being real. Because he's you cannot pretend that a man is going to find you attractive. I mean, you got wrinkles from head to foot, and you're gonna pretend that a 20 or 30-year-old man is going to find that attractive, as opposed to somebody his age. You're being unrealistic. You're not being real. By the same token, a man that's going to his elderly years, it's no point in him pretending that some 20, 30-year-old girl is interested in him. He's not being realistic. That she won't look at all those wrinkles. That's not being realistic. But, I know that on YouTube and other social media, you're going to find some people who have older boyfriends or older wives or older girlfriends. I know that. But like I said, I'm a realist, okay? I'm just a realist. There's no way I can pretend that a man in their 20s and 30s would be interested in me. I mean, that's pretense. I'm not I'm just going by what I see. I'm not being realistic, in my opinion. Now, that was this case number one. There's this young black male. He was light-skinned, green eyes, very handsome man. He got the death penalty. He's been electrocuted for raping and killing this white woman who was 82 years old. Now, I've always been suspicious of that case. In my opinion, it wasn't like that, okay? In my opinion, it wasn't like that. I think when she saw him, she's 82, she was right back in the 1930s. She see this light-skinned, young black male, green eyes. Her mind's going back to, 1930. Okay, so I think that she's told him, look, if you don't tell, I won't tell. So she probably paid him for sex. Every third of the month. When did she get her check? Every third month? She paid him for sex. That's what I think. And then when he asked for some more money, she said no, and he killed her. But, of course, his DNA and sperm were found inside her body, so he got the death penalty. Duh. But he had nothing to say as he was approaching death. But why would he choose her out of all the people in that apartment complex? Why in the world would he rape an old 82-year-old woman when there's other women in the apartment complex that he could have raped? But I honestly think he had an affair with her. But he's not going to admit. He's in his late 20s to the early 30s when he was executed. There's no way he's going to admit to anybody, to a court or anybody, that he had a sexual relationship with an 82-year-old woman. He's not going to admit that on a good day, ever. He just isn't. And then there was the other case with this 72-year-old woman. This black man in his 20s and 30s. That was a white woman, by the way. White woman has been the death of a black man, okay? But this other old woman who was black, she was found killed, and they found a guy. He got life in jail. Now, like I said, I think that case was more than what it's worth, too. I've always thought that. I really think, okay, she's in her mid to late 70s. This black man, she's a black woman, this black man is out there. So immediately her mind is going back to 1940, 1930. So she, back in her day, what the women did was lift their dresses. Okay, they lifted their skirts. Can you imagine that? and back in her day, the women, if they wanted something from men, they lifted their skirt. Okay, so she lifted her skirt. He saw her raggedy drawers and her raggedy legs. So duh. Okay, but anyway, and he probably asked her, she probably is another one who paid him for sex. She get a check every third of the month. So he asked her for some more money. She said no, he killed her. Okay, that's what I think was the most likely scenario, even though I didn't know the very much particulars of the case. That's just my that's my imagination. Because like I said, again, I don't see how he even came in contact with her. Of all the women where he was living, how did he come in contact with her, okay? Some things just don't make any sense. But, I think when you get in a relationship like that, you're just asking for trouble because the way you're thinking is just off. I mean, the way you think and the way he thinks is just off. And when you got that big age difference, the music is totally different. The music is totally different. I mean, the music that I listen to is totally different than the person who's 1 year younger than I am. Listen to that music is totally different because I grew up in the generation of Otis Redding, Percy Sledge, and so on. And they grew up in a different generation of Whitney Houston and rap music, okay? Different. Okay, but the whole problem I see with elderly people in my particular family, as I have observed, they had no hobbies. They didn't knit, crochet, or sew. Hardly any of them could cook. So they just had no hobbies. They were too idle. Their minds were idle. Their hands were idle. So there's nothing to do but cuss each other out and cuss other people out. Okay? And pretend that they can have sex with somebody else. Now, a lot of the sex stories I heard in my family were about my great-grandmother and my grandmother. And trust me, you don't want to know the details. You don't want to know those details, so I'm going to spare you. But most of these sex tales that I heard about in my family were about my great-grandmother and my grandmother. And like I said, you do not want to know those details, okay? But see, the problem like I said, that I see in elderly people is this idleness. Idleness, just not doing nothing. Not reading, because they were idle when they were young. They were idle when they were young. They didn't sew for the children, didn't knit, cook, nothing. So when they're old, they didn't sew, knit, cook. They didn't do nothing when they were young, so when they old, they're not doing anything. Okay? So, and then you have these celebrities, they got to be on stage all the time. They don't know when to quit. They getting on stage with next to nothing, with their wrinkled body and everything, and like the audience is about to throw up because they look at these wrinkly old women and old men trying to do something on stage. They don't know when to go off stage. They just don't. They got all this plastic in their face trying to look young, and they just look ridiculous. They just don't know when to just say goodbye. Now, like I said, as I age, I always have hobbies. I mean, I'm always busy doing something. They're literally, I try to get as much as I can during the day. But some things I need a lot of peace and quiet. Like when I'm writing, I need a lot of peace and quiet. I need people to be gone out of the house so I can just write from my mind and write and everything. I need people gone. That's the problem with writing. You need people gone. You need some kind of peace and quiet in the house. You need people gone. Okay. But, like I said, I get tired about 7 o'clock. So I don't know if, now when I was younger, it was nothing for me to stay up to 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning studying the book. But no, I'm not going to do that now. Be 1, 2 o'clock in the morning writing. I'm not going to do that now. But like I said, I do what I can. I keep myself busy. I got all kinds of hobbies, all kinds of projects that I'm doing. And that's not to mention what I do outside. Last year I had a small garden. It was respectable. I mean, it wasn't perfect, but it was a respectable garden. So what my opinion is to the elderly is to keep yourself busy. That's all I can say. Keep yourself busy, and read the Bible, read other books, so your mind won't be your mind can always be clear, so you won't be into all this shenanigans and controversial stuff. But you know what? Your mind, as you age, you're not gonna think as clearly as you did when you were young. So that's why it's good to exercise your mind, with books and memorization and memorizing definitions of words and so on and so forth. So that's what my suggestion is to people who are aging. Keep busy. Get hobbies. Okay, stay out of other people's business. Have a nice day.